Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today I'm bringing you guys my top 5 hidden gem ships. So what I mean by the term hidden gem, I mean that these are ships that, beyond their initial release, however long ago they were released, you don't really hear too much about them anymore. They've been overshown by, all these new crazy ships that we're getting in the game. But in my opinion, these 5 ships are still really solid ships, and ships that are pretty fun to play and do offer some unique play styles and a nice switch up from the usual gameplay that I see every day. So again, ships that aren't amazing, but definitely deserve being looked at. And if you do manage to pick these ships up, especially if you can pick them up for a discounted price or in a crate or something like that, there are a couple of tech line ships in here as well. These are really solid ships in my mind. So again, this is all 125% my opinion. And also too, if you do enjoy the video, do make sure you drop a like and leave a comment before you click off of it. It does help with the algorithm to get this video pushed out to more and more viewers. I do greatly appreciate that. So again, this is all my opinion. Let's go ahead and get started with number 5, which is the Tier 7 Premium American Cruiser, the Indianapolis. Now, the Indianapolis is, well, a Pensacola. However, it's a Pensacola that has radar at Tier 7. The Indianapolis is a pretty special ship because even still today, there's only a handful of ships down at Tier 7 that have radar, which with the amount of ships they just keep bolting radar onto at Tier 8 and above is something that she can gladly still say. Now, of course, the Indianapolis does share a fair few of the weaknesses of the Pensacola, in that if you are caught broadside, you are going to have a bad day if there's a battleship nearby. But what no one really likes to mention too much when Pensacola gets brought up and how she's made of explodium is that if you do actually angle correctly, the Pensacola and the Indianapolis by extension are actually really darn tanky. Now, am I telling you you're going to be able to sit there and tank for days? Actually, against other cruisers, yeah, you can. And in most cases, again, when some things with bigger guns get involved, it's a different story. But against other cruisers, especially light cruisers, she is actually really darn tanky. And not to mention, too, she does have the American cruiser guns on there as well. Now, the AP is a very, very, very big advantage you have here with the Indianapolis and, of course, with the American cruisers. By extension, she has some very large guns for Tier 7, and they hit and bite nice and hard. And of course the radar too, that gives the ship an incredible amount of utility at Tier 7. There's still quite a few DDs that are a little bit too bold, shall we say, at Tier 7. Ones that haven't really learned their lesson from being double up tiered and having to deal with a bunch of radar. So you can still catch quite a few DDs off guard with this radar because, again, there's, the Indianapolis, the Atlanta, the Belfast. I think that's it. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments down below if I've missed a radar ship at Tier 7. But yeah, 3 ships, maybe 1 or 2 more that I've missed they really have to worry about. So you can catch quite a few of them off guard. You can, of course, radar islands that you're trying to push around and see if anything's there and waiting for you. It's a fantastic bit of utility to have at Tier 7 along with the guns that you get on this cruiser. And of course, the history behind it is cool. It is the Indianapolis, the ship that delivered the bomb and then was subsequently sunk. And if you ever seen Jaws, well, you know what happened after that. So a really cool ship, a nice historical ship that's a really solid ship in the game. Also, too, if the off chance that there is some competitive mode, be it ranked, be it clan battles at Tier 7, it's a fantastic ship to bring. Again, radar in Tier 7 competitive. And it's not on a ship that just gets vibe checked instantly like the Belfast or the Atlanta. So again, neat little ship here, solid historical ship for once, and one that I would recommend. Again, definitely can get this one and sell. This is a nice one to pick up. Moving on down to number 4, we have the Tier 6 Premium British Aircraft Carrier, the Ark Royal. The Ark Royal is yet another historical ship that is actually really good. Now, the Ark Royal, was a fair amount of course, fanfare around her being introduced into the game, as it is the Ark Royal, the ship whose planes delivered the essentially death blow to the Bismarck, jamming her rudder during the hunt for Bismarck. And thankfully, just like I was talking about with the Hornet not that long ago, they did manage to work those swordfish biplanes into the game, into this ship. Now, if you guys don't know why that's a big deal, the swordfish are, and this is another thing as to why what they accomplished in the hunt for Bismarck was so significant, swordfish were completely obsolete by World War II. They're biplanes, they're slow, they're made of canvas, they are at best like late interwar period planes, if that even. So when in real life these biplanes, who the pilots on them were still undergoing training, went after the most advanced German battleship at the time and managed to cripple her by landing a torpedo hit on her rudder, that's an amazing accomplishment. And none of them were shot down in real life, too. So that was an amazing feat in real life, but trying to get that to cross over into the game, that's kind of, because swordfish are tier 4 planes, and this is a tier 6 carrier, which means you can see tier 8 ships with, actual decent AA add to that tier, especially in comparison to a tier 4 plane's HP. So they managed to get this to work. They really cranked down the regen time on these planes, which means that you have a pretty nice plane factory with the Ark Royal. Now, if you are exceptionally careless, it's not quite like the Kaga, to where you can just throw your planes away and have 20 already waiting for you by the time you get back to the carrier. It's not quite that good, but for a decent CV player, it's more than enough to keep up. The swordfish are slow, but the munition they carry and deliver are pretty nice. You have the nice converging torpedoes, where rather than like a lot of torpedoes, the spread either keeps them going straight or they kind of fan out. The torpedoes do converge to a point, which means that, especially once you get comfortable with the ship, it's really easy to get 3 torpedo hits every time, and then you're doing some significant amount of damage by then. Plus, she has the level bombers with her other flight of swordfish, which are great for dealing with light cruisers and destroyers and setting fires on battleships. And then you have her rocket planes, which in my opinion are the weakest, and ironically they're the only one of her 3 flights that aren't swordfish biplanes. They're like, yeah, they aight. So, again, another cool historical ship here that can hold her own. Even with someone like me, who's not the best CV player in the world playing her, I can still do okay in tier 8 games with this ship. And again, another cool historical ship. I'm so glad they managed to work her into the game. And I'm also happy to report she is a decent little ship. And one that you would think would get talked about more than she does. And plus, you get bonus points if you do find a Bismarck in the match and you manage to disable his rudder. The chat will explode in laughter. Alright, on our way down now to number 3, we have one of the, I believe, the newest ship on this list, the Tier 7 Canadian destroyer, the Huron. So the Huron was a DD that was introduced in the previous Dockyard event. She was, I believe, the middle point, because now the Repulse 44 is like, you gotta get like 3/4 of the way through the Dockyard, but the Huron was the midpoint reward for the Dockyard. If you guys don't know, with most of the more recent Dockyards, they keep throwing in these free premiums about halfway, or again in case of the Repulse 44, about two-thirds of the way through the Dockyard. Now the Huron is definitely not the best DD in the game, but she is a nice little DD to have at Tier 7. If you play the Haida or the Cossack, you'll be pretty right at home here with the Huron. However, she trades the short burst smoke that her sisters and cousins get for a little hill. Now, it's a small hill. It's not much, but for newer DD players, or for players that aren't quite as comfortable in DDs as others, it is still something. It's a nice little something to get you through an engagement with another DD. Not to mention too, her guns are actually pretty decent. The ballistics on them are really comfortable, and even though the ship has a very large range on her guns for a DD, they aren't quite as floaty as some of the other British DD shells from my experience. And definitely with like a DD on DD fight, they are very comfortable to use. And again, if you're used to the Haida or the Cossack, you'll be right at home here with the Huron. Of course, she has a single drop torpedoes as well. And not to mention, too, that this, again, was a free ship. And I believe if she isn't available yet, they did say she was going to be available early in 2023 for purchase. So, a solid little DD here all around. Another nice historical ship too. This was a real steel ship. This really served with the Canadian Navy, so the Canadians finally got a solid premium in the game and didn't have to settle with just the Yukon. But yeah, a little DD I do like to take out every now and then. Again, the guns are very nice on the ship, especially when you do manage to get lucky and get a tier 7 game in your top tier. The ship is absolutely great, and I'm comfortable going up against just about any other tier 7 DD in this ship. Alright, moving on down to number 2, we have the Japanese battleship, the Hyuga. The Hyuga is an Issei. However, it doesn't have its back end ripped off and a flight deck welded to it. This is what the Issei class of battleship actually were like. Now, of course, you do have the Issei in game that does have the flight deck welded to it, but this is what that class looks like without that monstrosity being attached to the ship. And I gotta say, this is actually a really, really comfortable battleship to play. I find that her guns are accurate, they're consistent, and they hit hard. You get 12 of them, and I mean, man, I know they're not very large for their tier, but they are quite accurate enough to make more than a few ships double check their movements and their positioning on the map when you are around. And even if they don't give you broadside, again, you're still throwing 12 shells at them. You aim for their superstructure, you're probably going to chunk them for easily 13 to 14 to 15k. Not to mention, besides having some nice set of guns, Hyuga does also get a reload booster. And you're thinking, why in the world would they give a 12-gun battleship a reload booster? I don't know. It's, I believe, the only Japanese, definitely the only Japanese battleship with it, and I'm pretty sure the only Japanese ship with it in the game, besides, of course, talking about the torpedo reload booster, but that's something completely different. And yeah, she does. So not only do you have 12 guns that are pretty accurate and consistent too, you have a reload booster, which means that if someone does goof up and show you broadside, you pop that reload booster, you got a whole nother broadside coming their way. Now, it does only last long enough for you to get one charge off. I think the only way you can get 2 charges off with the reload booster going is if you have a crack in with Yamamoto, and you're on like your last 1,000 or 2,000 HP. Maybe then you could get 2 salvos off, but most of the time it's only fast enough to get one follow-up salvo off. So it's not quite like the Jean Bar that can rip 3 salvos off right out the gate with the reload booster going. But again, a fun ship. She's pretty tanky. Now, again, she's not unbelievably tanky or anything like that, but for what she can do, she's an excellent kiter. If you can get on the off flank, angle out, the gun angles on the ship are pretty good. Again, they're not amazing, but they're pretty good. And you got that reload booster, be throwing HE at them, but they go bow into you, they pop damage con, wait for the damage con to go off a cooldown, send another round of HE their way, then pop that reload booster, and with the 24 shells you just threw at them, you're probably going to be setting a few fires. Then they decide they want to turn and run away. That's when you get the AP in the tube. That's another thing too. You can, if you don't have the expert loader on, you can pop that in between switching ammunition types if you want to take advantage of someone turning broadside if you got like HE loaded and you want to swap over to AP real quick. So again, just a good solid all-around ship, one that if you pick this one up in a container for like the Sailing Container event or anything like that, I'd say this is a really good and solid ship. Or if you're thinking about picking up a Japanese premium, a mid-tier Japanese premium, this one's also really solid in my mind as well. And going on down to number 1, we have the Tier 8 British battlecruiser Hawke. The British battlecruiser line, for the most parts, was a big surprise for me because Wargaming did actually decide to go with their second iteration of this design for the line, which was medium to close range ships rather than long range ships, which I do appreciate them trying to make an effort to get the meta to shift back towards that type of gameplay style. And the line turned out to be a pretty solid line all the way up and down, but if I had to pick one of the ships to stand out the most in the line, it was a close call between the Rook and the Hawke. Now, I didn't want to, of course, just pick the Tier 10 because St. Vincent's nuts. Everyone knows that. Again, this is about hidden gems. The Hawke, in my mind, is just so much fun to play. First off, you have 9 16-inch guns at Tier 8, which is a lot of firepower for Tier 8. Most ships at Tier 8 that do have 16-inch guns, they either don't have 9 or if they do have 9, they aren't all that accurate, again, unless something like the North Carolina, or they give big concessions in their armor scheme. Now, of course, Hawke is a battle cruiser, so she does have those, how do we say, not the best balanced stern plating ever, but she's very maneuverable. She's a battle cruiser. You knew that going into this. It's not like you get the North Carolina and then you discover, because, you just got your entire ship deleted via Yamato, that you don't have the best side armor ever. You know that going in. So she's got that going for her. She's also very maneuverable. Like I said, engine boost. She gets the funny torpedoes that can and will absolutely win you a brawl in a close-in situation. And 2, not to mention, she's just fun to play. She's great. You get 16-inch guns, so when you are top tier, you can overmatch the bow armor of quite a few battleships that you can see. She also has pretty decent HE to follow that up as well. 30-second base reload time on the gun, so you don't have to worry about that. And she's also pretty stealthy too. So this ship is just a blast to play. It's fun to play. She's best played at medium to close range. Now, of course, with how a lot of higher tier matches go, unfortunately that won't be happening too much, but she can also keep up in those games as well, because again, she does have decent HE. You can swap over that, burn the world down, run around like a large cruiser, and just have a ball in this tech line ship. So guys, those are my top 5 hidden gems for today. Let me know what you guys would add to this list. What would you take off of it? What are your top 5 hidden gems in the comments down below? If you enjoyed, again, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel. One way to 50,000 subs because of you guys, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.